we've been doing this, I'm all over the map. I'm running back here, grabbing a guitar. I'm moving left. I'm moving right. I'm talking down here.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting the microphone is there, and so just creates a lot of problems. So, good morning.
Good morning.
I am Lance,
And I am Mike.
and we are just these guys,
Still at it.
Just a couple of guys. That's it.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was terrible,
Yeah.
and you're going to know why.
Okay.
Friday, somehow or another,
I am going to know why.
I got a hold of some gluten.
Oh, roofied yourself, did you?
Well, it wasn't so much the roofie part as the back, the pain.
Sure.
I was just in intense back pain all weekend. I couldn't figure out why for the longest time.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of work and labor, so I'm thinking, am I really that out of shape?
Well, so I've tested this theory. If I'm going to be standing here, speaking about the glory of the gluten-free living, I want to make sure that it's accurate. And it wasn't just, a medication or this or that or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. It is absolutely a factor.
Oh, it's
Big time.
crazy.
Because I've had a little gluten here and there, just like I said, to test the theory out. And
No.
And it is interesting that it seems to hit first in the back. It's my lower and middle back that will begin to really bother me.
Yes.
And so it's interesting. I would love to know more of the science behind that.
Not going to bother looking it up and reading
Nah,
it.
I would just love to know it.
No, but the inflammation, the allergic reaction to the gluten causes inflammation.
Right, I get that, but is it the...
Well, that inflammation is extra fluid and juices, and so they're squeezing. That inflammation is putting pressure on your joints.
Well, I get that. Why the back?
Because,
Why is it hitting there? Is that the central...
Because as you age, and as we age,
I'm not
our
aging.
back becomes an issue.
Mm-hmm.
With the damage that we've done to it and the minor amount of space we have between our discs anymore and the aging of the spinal canal, there's just less room in there. And so any kind of pressure on it is going to generate that pain.
I get it. And when I'm just feeling so good, I can't help but dance. And it's weird to just all of a sudden be dancing and realize you're doing it. Yeah. And because always before it was like, oh, you were too stiff to move. The less movement, the better. And now all of a sudden I just find myself, I got a little jig going on.
Well, I've noticed that the past 3 weeks as I'm editing the video for this, you'll be off in the corner just dancing with myself.
Right.
Oh.
Yep. Like no one's looking.
Now, you're not going to get that song out of your head for the rest of your day.
No, but it's okay. I like it.
And today, when we get to fundamental number 4, I hope, what do they call them, earworms?
Yep.
I hope to plant an earworm.
Beautiful.
I hope this starts just eating at your brain.
Gotcha.
From here on out. When we get to the cognitive reframing in fundamental number 4, and I can never say that word. Mm-hmm. Fundamental number 4, negative thinking versus positive thinking.
Yep.
How to recognize it and how to make the shift and why. Why do you want to make this shift? That's a lot of times the key.
This is such a huge, and I've mentioned this before, and we'll come back around to this, but this really is the roof on top of this whole thing that really protects your ability and to your continued desire to walk in the other fundamentals is this fundamental. It's the negative and the positive thinking that goes on in your brain, in your mind. And it's a battle. And the thing is, once you begin to recognize it, you realize the battle that you're in. There's so many of us, and I've spent so many years of my life in the battle, not even realizing I was just taking a whipping. I was just being pummeled with it all day long. And it was my own control. It was my own fault. And so that's the best news and the worst news all wrapped up in one, is that I can change.
Yes. And well, the reason why fundamental number 4 kind of came into the fold, and I'll explain more when we get to fundamental number 4, but were the people who worked really hard on what are now 1, 2, and 3 were tripping up. They're trying very hard to do 1, 2, and 3. And if you're just for a quick recap, fundamental number 1, the difference between the things I don't control versus what I do control. And the only thing I have control over is this moment in time, what I'm thinking, doing, and what I am feeling.
Yep.
I don't control what other people think, do, or feel.
Yep.
Fundamental number 2, a lens that we put on, a perceptual process that is distorted, is should statements. And so when we say people should or I need to, we're putting on a mental filter that is designed to cause us frustration and anger if it's other people, anger at ourselves, or guilt and shame if it's pointed at ourselves. I need to do this, pressure, stress, or nothing.
Sure.
And we're choosing that filter, and that becomes our life. And so if we can shift to a different way of thinking, a different set of sunglasses, preferences, what do I want? How do I want things to be? How would I like things to go? That opens the door for happiness. We take back control of ourselves, and there's no resentments and there's no depression.
Yep.
Fundamental number 3 was how not to worry. Worry is an epidemic. Anxiety is an epidemic. Well, how do you not worry?
Sure.
And that's what fundamental number 3 taught us how to do, is to shift from worrying about a negative future to getting in the present moment, creating plans to deal with a possible negative future, and then making one more shift and dreaming of a positive future, and then making plans to build that positive future. And then fundamental number 4 now becomes the capstone for all of that to keep us heading in the right direction.
Yep.
Before we get there, though, a couple of feedback items from during the week. 2 weeks ago when we did fundamental number 1, and you made a comment in the middle of the podcast that took me a little bit by surprise, but I roll with the punches. I knew what you meant, and it's not the first time I heard it before. Well, a person who has worked with me for a long period of time and has really dug into this stuff and has been doing amazing work and making so much progress. They said that they were out for a walk.
Yep.
And they put on their headphones and they were going through the podcast, kind of catching up. And they got to the podcast on fundamental number 1. And they told me, they said, I thought I was pretty comfortable with all of this. And then when you said in the podcast that it is your fault, you cause how you feel, I was offended afresh.
Yeah. Offended afresh.
Yes. And you had said that is the most offensive statement in the book.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this individual responded with, was offense, to hear it again, even though they knew it. And
Sure.
They said they've accepted that and they understand it and they believe it. But to hear it being said to them was once again offensive. And it speaks to the need for repetition of this.
Absolutely.
We start to we hear it, we believe it. Okay, I get it. But then we start to drift away from it. And that opens the door for us to blame other people, to blame the past, to blame.
Yeah. Yeah, the thought that was rolling through my head as you were just talking was, imagine, it's the same thing if we were to, say, look at our marriages and say, the biggest issue in my marriage is me.
True.
This is actually my fault. Now, so imagine if we were to start there, if everybody was to start there. Okay, I get it. Easier said than done.
Sure.
But imagine how many marriages would survive rough patches. Imagine how many marriages would experience, relationships in general would experience healing if we just said, okay, you know what? I take it. This is I know that I can change this in order to maybe put us in a better direction, a better place. Instead, we blame. We in our minds, we have these little arguments that are, and that's that negative coming in. And
that was the second comment that somebody said, just almost what you're talking about there, was they for the first time heard the concepts about should, must, have to, shifting to preferences. And the homework says to take a day or two to just listen to yourself and count.
Yeah.
And they came in looking like a boxer coming in from the ring and just flopping down in the corner with their arms on the ropes. They said, "Ah, God, I say that so." I had to stop counting. I say it so much. It was just a constant thought in my head. I can't believe I'm always thinking that way.
Right.
And I said, "Well, were you able to do any reframing of any of those? Or you just counting them? And they said, no, I was able to reframe them. And they said that helped. I felt better.
Yeah.
And it helped me own it.
Mm.
They said once I shifted from a should or a need to and said, no, this is what I want, boom, it was mine. And I owned it and it was okay.
Yeah. Now you talk about fundamental number 2 being expectations. Well, it's easy to fall into the trap, and I've done this, and I still catch myself doing it, but it's easy to fall into the trap of expecting your behavior to change and completely lose focus on the fact that this is all about changing the way we think before we should ever expect our behavior to change. And so this is a good reminder moment here that that's what this is all about. This is about 12:2, and this is about living a life where we are taking God's advice through Scripture of being renewed, finding a newness, being not offended afresh, but renewed afresh with a new, not new, even new, old, but new for us, way of thinking.
Sure. And it's offensive in the sense that I've been thinking this way my entire life, and you're going to roll in here and tell me I've been wrong my entire life.
Yep.
There's an old psychology technique. I don't think people use it very much because of the name of it, and so they just immediately move on because they're wussies. Mm-hmm. But it's called spitting in the client soup. Mm. And, the idea of sitting there eating a warm bowl of soup, it feels good, it smells good, and you just want to just keep eating it. Well, if somebody spit in your soup, you can still keep eating it, but it's not going to taste good anymore.
It's going to be a little offensive.
It's going to be a very negative experience. And that is what that statement does for people is the logic walking through. If you don't control the rain, you go roll up your car window. Well, you don't control other people. Yeah. So they don't control you.
Yeah.
Now, whatever's going on, you can fix it. And now when they're out and they're complaining about what somebody else said about them, that thought is in their head that it's not their fault that I'm mad. And it's no longer fun.
Right.
To gripe and complain about somebody, because in the back of your head, you got to hear that voice saying, it's all your fault. It's all your fault. If you're upset, it's all your fault.
Woo! Kind of the whole idea of dying to ourself and finding a better way.
And another feedback came in. There's a passage, Galatians 5:1, I think it is, where Paul talks about, you have been freed from the law. You have been freed from the tyranny of the law. And you now, thanks to Jesus's actions, you have been given freedom. Mm-hmm. And somebody said this week that freedom is actually freedom of thought.
That's good.
If you transform by the renewing of your mind, if you change how you think, you have the freedom to change how you think now. And before Jesus did what he did, before he went to the cross, there was no freedom of thought. There was 613 laws. You had to follow them all. And then you had to figure out all the loopholes and everything like that to stay within the law and be okay, and then go find a sheep somewhere to sacrifice. There was no freedom of thinking.
Sure.
And with Jesus' sacrifice, he has set us free. Freedom of thought. Whosoever chooseth, that is a thought, that is a choice. perspective. Why are you trying to get that speck of dust out of your brother's eye? Look at yourself. Think about yourself. Focus on yourself.
Yeah.
Martha, very few things actually needed. That is a perspective. Should, must, have to. Mary has chosen what is better, a different perspective. It's all about perspective. It's all about you now have a freedom to think differently. Think in the way that he has given us. It's freedom of thought, not freedom of behavior. Yeah, you want to run down to a bar, you can do it, but you're going to feel guilty because you think that ain't right.
Right.
It's freedom of thought.
Yep.
So that brought me to my inspirational thought.
Hit us.
We are actually engaged in AI here.
Mm-hmm.
The whole rage with AI these days.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized you and we are dishing out AI. Actual intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
That's going somewhere.
That's revelational. Actual intelligence.
Actual intelligence. Not artificial.
Right. That's good.
This is actual intelligence.
Dang, I might. That could be a great series. That could be a good series.
And I already got all...
Just copyright that.
I got all the website domain names.
Gotcha. Cool.
I went and got a bunch of domain names. AI psychology.
Nobody had gone in there and snagged those.
AI psychology.
Yeah.
No, nobody. I'm the first.
Nice. Good job.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that.
Cool.
We're going to create some
actual
stuff
intelligence.
This is actual intelligence. This isn't artificial. You're not relying on a computer.
You bet.
Built and designed and programmed by somebody else to give you an answer.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you access actual intelligence. You turn inside yourself, the knowledge inside of yourself, the Holy Spirit inside of you will give you actual intelligence.
That will lead you to a life of the big W, which is actually wisdom, which is the intelligence put into action. That leads to the big W, win.
Bam.
Winning. Actual intelligence. Sweet. I love it.
Fundamental number 4. Negative versus positive thinking. How many times have you heard, don't be so negative?
Like this morning? How many times?
They're always so negative. Well, to understand how to change, you have to understand what you're changing from so you can recognize it when it's occurring.
You bet.
So how do we know when we're being negative? Oh, this is so good. I can teach you how to not be negative in 2 seconds. And it's so crazy because I will interview different professionals. We'll keep it up here for a while. Mm-hmm. And they will have worked with somebody for a year or 2 years. And as I'm interviewing them in the process of doing my job, the comments will be that this person has such a negative outlook. And I'm like, how long you been working with them?
Yeah.
2 years. I'm like, Because I can solve that problem in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
2 seconds. How do we know? So first of all, what is negative thinking? Because when you tell people don't be negative, they flip it into insanity and say, well, not everything's sunshine and roses. I don't think that's what I said.
Right.
But negative thinking is any thinking that leads to a negative experience and usually results in a negative behavior. So if you're doing negative things, you probably feel negative, which means you're probably thinking negative.
Sure.
Negative thinking is any thinking that leads to a negative experience and usually results in a negative behavior. So conversely, positive thinking is any thinking that leads to a positive experience and usually results in a positive behavior. So the experience I always describe as a number line. If you go back to the 3rd grade, you had that integer line, You had 0 in the middle, and then a line going off to the right that was +1, +2, +3.
Yep.
And a line going off to the left that was -1, -2, -3. And that represents experience. We can have no experience, like you do every morning. You walk in here and you drink my fantastic coffee.
Ooh, it's so good. I don't even think about it.
You don't even think about it. 0. Or you could have a positive experience. A little bit. That's good.
It's
or a
very
lot.
good.
Man, that's great.
Thanks for the great coffee.
Or negative. You can have a little bit of a negative experience, or you can have a lot of a negative experience.
Mm-hmm.
So negative thinking is any thinking that leads to a negative experience and results in a negative behavior. And that's where some people will spend a lifetime trying to not be negative and not even realizing as they're trying to not be negative, they're being negative.
Sure.
2 seconds. I can give it to you in 2 seconds.
2 seconds is up.
A little bit of silence here to build the tension, build the anticipation. 2 seconds. How to recognize when you're thinking negative. All right, Johnny's lining up the putt. The word not. If the word not is in the sentence or the thought, you are thinking negatively. And it has cousins, it has derivatives. Don't, do not, can't, cannot, didn't, did not, nothing, not a thing, won't, will not. If that word is in the sentence, then you are thinking negatively. Now, if we go back to what we've talked about in the past about mental images, that right now you're not seeing me, that your eyeballs and your brain are processing all the visual light and creating a mental image in your mind of me.
Yeah.
And so for all the viewers out there right now, you don't actually see me. You're looking at a screen. I'm not in your phone, but there's a visual representation. It's an image of me, and it's a moving image, so we call it video. Well, our brain does the same thing. We take all this light, we process it, we create this mental image. Now, that's important to understand because when I imagine something, imagination, I'm creating a mental image. And to my brain, this mental image is the same as this mental image. The mental image from my imagination appears to my brain the same as a mental image from my visual cortex. So I process the two the same. So the moment I say I don't want something, I see it.
Yep.
The moment I say I don't want to go there, I see it. And since I am seeing myself in a place I don't want to be, I begin to have the negative experience. Hey, do you want to go to lunch? Well, I don't want McDonald's. The hell's wrong with you always going to damn McDonald's? Mm-hmm. I just imagined myself at McDonald's and I'm reacting emotionally as if I'm in that McDonald's. I'm feeling frustrated and angry. I'm sickened, whatever. I'm disgusted. And so my negative thought leads to a negative emotional experience. And now I'm behaving negatively. I'm throwing attitude. I'm speaking ugly. I've got an ugly look on my face. I don't want to go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
How I think leads to what I feel, leads to what I do. If I think negatively what I don't want, well, I don't want to upset them. And my eyes light up and I get up on my tippy toes and I begin to, as if I've already upset them. It's a thought. I don't want this. I see it. I now have the negative emotional experience to what I just saw. So I will behave negatively. Or if I try to not behave negatively, somebody says something that's offensive to you. And you think, okay, don't react. And so you begin to stifle the negative behavior that you're feeling compelled to say or perform. So you start squirming and making faces. People see it. What's wrong with you? Nothing.
Yeah.
So, I can't do it. Cannot. Here, try this. I can't do it. I feel like a failure because I just saw myself failing.
Sure.
The moment, here, try this. I see myself failing doing it. I say I can't do it. I see myself failing. So I feel right now like the failure. And so what kind of effort am I going to put into it?
Yeah, you bet.
I can't do it. See,
Man,
I told you I can't.
What a snowball effect it can have once we have developed the habit of even beginning our day. Like right out of the gate, as soon as we wake up, we start thinking about what we don't want.
Yeah.
I don't want to get up. I don't want to do this. I don't want, is it raining? And it just snowballs from there. We're just digging a hole.
Right.
Digging a hole.
The moment our eyes pop open, I don't want to get up. I don't want to go to work today. I don't want to have to deal with that guy. Within 3 seconds, we are causing ourselves to feel negative. And there's a million negative emotions. So you can start labeling them however you want. But I don't want to get up. I don't want to.
But when it comes to the people that we are going to have to deal with, the circumstances in our life, that's not what we're trying to change. What we're trying to change is the way we think about it, and then that may actually change the experience, but it's not. It doesn't change. It's the lens thing.
Well, and when I give you the reframe, cognitive reframe, when I give you the trick how to change all of this, that's what I unlock. That's what you begin to unlock inside of you.
Sure.
Is that power you already possess to do something powerful. I haven't said it yet. But before we go on, I can't, so I feel negative, so I behave negatively, and that negative behavior feeds back into the negative thinking. I can't do it. See, I told you I can't do it.
Vicious cycle.
It affirms the negative thought. I don't want to go to McDonald's. Okay, we won't go to McDonald's. Why are we not going to McDonald's? Because I complained about it. See, I have to stand up for myself. If I didn't stand up for myself, we affirm the negative thinking through our negative behavior, and it cements it as if it's a legitimate way of thinking. Somebody did something the other day. Oh, I can't let them not know. I have to. They need to know this. I don't want them going through all of that without knowing this. It's negative. And so they're already feeling negative, and they're going to run off and gossip.
Sure. Yeah, and what keeps coming into my mind is what tends to happen is we surround ourselves with like-minded people who are miserable as well, and then because misery loves company, we find ourselves again hanging out with miserable people. And we can't hardly stand that because it's like looking in a mirror. And this is why we're constantly conflicted in our relationships, in our connections. There's a light bulb that is starting to go on for me here, where I'm rolling through, and I hope others are doing this. Just rolling through.
Yes, that's the whole point. And this is the earworm that's going to be in your brain the rest of the time, because now you're going to start hearing it coming out of other people's mouths.
Sure.
And, I have a pet peeve, and I've had it for quite a while now. And it's really, I have to work on it because you want to fire me up, say you can't do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me what you don't want.
Sure. I've noticed.
That's my pet peeve, to hear people intentionally, unintentionally, unknowingly think negatively.
Yeah.
And to fail before they try.
Sure.
Just burns my biscuits.
Yep.
Burns my biscuits.
It just burns them. Yeah.
So, so you start playing through any word with the nothing. Nothing goes right. Not a thing. So how many millions of things do you go through just to get to my house?
Sure.
The the car ran, the air conditioner's on, the tires stayed inflated, the traffic was slow. Nothing went right this morning. You had one or two things go off track, but you're thinking not a thing.
I'm going to hit you with a beautiful example of how this is working. Because I'm just going to be honest, it's not been the case for me for far too long. I just hit a knot with you, but it's over the weekend we were in
factual knots.
Yeah, over the weekend we were in Lake of the Ozarks. Had a great weekend, just a great weekend. Weather was awesome. Company was amazing. It was just a great time. Carrying the bags out to the car, just went up 3 flights of stairs, got back up to the parking lot, walking up to the car, and there's a guy out in the parking lot, and he's walking my direction, and we're crossing paths. He can see the car that I'm going to, and he says, "You got a flat tire." So I thought, well, maybe he's got the wrong car. No, he had the right car. Big old framing nail just stuck right inside, not on the sidewall, woohoo, but right in the tread on the top. Well, my natural response was, ugh, what a way to end the trip. And I guess we didn't end the trip. Now I'm fixing a flat tire. So now my therapy here is I was worried about delaying the 2 other couples and their exit. I didn't want them to have to wait around.
Didn't want.
Yep. This is my therapy right here. I went negative.
Mm-hmm.
That was my negative. Even though it could be spun as, well, I was concerned about them.
No, you weren't.
No. And so I started to make preparations to get my spare tire out, which is a donut. But a good friend of mine, Mac, who was there, he says, let's just go to O'Reilly's and get a plug, and we'll plug it and air it up, and you'll be able to drive that thing all the way home. So he wanted to help. It's just who he is. And so what it helped me with was to appreciate, I was able to go there because I started thinking positively about this. I was able to thank God for him. Obviously, I thanked him, but I thank God for him. I thank God for Jeff, the other gentleman who was with us, who went all the way back down to the boat and got an air compressor out of the boat. So I had all these blessings going on around me. And then the big one was this. The thought hit me. This was God protecting us from something. And we fixed the tire. So it turned into a completely positive situation. And it all started with the thinking.
Sure. And it was, you said Max or Mac?
Mac.
Mm-hmm. We'll come back to Mac here in a second.
Okay.
Because this is a nice juxtaposition between you
sure.
and Mac.
Sure.
So how do you make a shift from negative thinking to positive thinking? So we're listening to how we think,
mm-hmm.
and if we're hearing not, don't, can't, didn't, won't,
right.
nothing,
yep.
we are thinking negative. We are creating negative emotional experiences, resulting in negative behaviors. How do we not think negative? Mm-hmm. Don't be so negative. They're being negative as you're telling you not to be negative. Don't be negative.
Yep.
Don't.
Yep.
So how do you shift to a positive thought process? You take the not out.
Yep. Take the not out.
Don't want.
Don't want.
Do want.
That's what I was saying in my mind. I don't want to delay them. I don't want. And it was just causing more tension. It was causing more anxiety.
Negative thought, negative experience. Now it's going to be a negative behavior of some kind.
Yep.
I do want, this is being considerate, I do want them to be able to get home as soon as possible. I do want them to have a nice trip. I do want them to be unencumbered. I do want them to enjoy their morning.
Yeah.
So now I am being considerate because I am now thinking about what I would like for them.
Sure.
And so I start to feel positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here's, so I just want to, it was Mac's wife, Misty, who made one simple comment, that just kind of woke my brain up. And she simply said this: just let them help. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm over here wallowing in my own negativity.
Well, and there's a few shoulds in there. This shouldn't happen. I shouldn't have to deal with this. They shouldn't have to go through all of that. So there's shoulds and there's negative shoulds, there's negative thinking.
Yeah.
And I should be able to handle it and they shouldn't have to. So all this pressure and stress is coming on you, which leads to worry. What if we're delayed? What if they don't enjoy the trip? What if, and they all just start to feed on each other like hyenas on a carcass.
Yeah.
Remember, we're doing a podcast. People have to hear us.
That's good.
So you shift from negative thinking to positive thinking by taking the word not out of your vocabulary. I don't want to go to McDonald's. I do want to go eat healthy food. I don't want this trip to be ruined. I do want us to have an enjoyable trip no matter what happens. And as the moment you think that, you see the positives and you start to feel positive. And so now you're going to behave positively.
You bet.
So another way to think about it, negative thinking, problem, positive thinking, solution.
Solution, yep.
And the old adage, don't cry over spilt milk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not a great example, but we spill the milk. Do we stand there for 30 minutes complaining about the milk and the slipperiness of the cup, and now the milk is doing damage to our kitchen floor? We spill the milk. What do? We clean it up. There's a problem here. We fix it. You were focused on the problem.
Yep.
The flat tire. Mac was focused on the solution. Fundamental number one, I don't control certain things in this world. I walk out, there's my car, it's got a nail in the tire. I can't change that.
Yep.
So now, in this present moment, what are the circumstances at hand? Because I can't go back into the past. And I can't find the idiot who laid the nail on the ground.
Sure.
So here I am, standing here in this moment, 2 bags in my hands, nail in my tire, problem. Solution.
Yep.
Well, let's see. I want them to have a pleasant morning. I want to get this fixed so that we can all drive home safely. So maybe I go back inside and say, hey guys, why don't y'all just take a little extra time, have some more coffee. I'm going to run down to the store, get this tire fixed. I'll be back in 30 minutes or so. So just relax. Have a great evening, have a morning.
Mm-hmm.
Problem, solution. Don't want, do want, can't, can, didn't, did, nothing, something. Now, there are times when things are negative.
Mm-hmm.
I have a flat tire. That's negative. The worst advice in the world. People tell us this. We say it to ourselves with the best of intentions, but well, it could be worse.
Sure.
It could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you stop and think about what they're actually trying to do, is they're trying to help you reframe the thought by going more negative.
Yeah, deeper into the hole. Yeah.
I'm experiencing negativity at a level 2, and you're saying it could be worse. Imagine. And so now I imagine that horrible, my car's on blocks.
Yeah.
It could be worse. They could have came and taken all your tires. So I now think
very helpful
about this really horrible situation to be okay with a little bit of sucky situation.
Right.
What they don't realize we're telling ourselves, what they don't realize they're telling us, they're literally saying, shut up. Stop your whining.
Sure. Yeah.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Yep.
Get over it. They're invalidating you. This sucks right now. And they're saying, don't feel that way.
Sure.
So how do you approach a negative situation that is truly negative? lost my job, lost my wife, lost my tire,
Yeah.
lost my ticket to the movie. How do you approach a negative situation from a positive frame of mind? It sucks now, but there's a brighter future.
Yeah.
I have back pain now, but if I stay off the gluten for a few days, my back pain will feel better.
Yep.
There's a problem. There's a solution.
Yeah.
Now, again, I studied this stuff all throughout the 90s, books, academia, research, smart people. Paul said this.
Indeed he did.
Paul is the original cognitive behavioral psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
He says, finally, my brethren, whatever is lovely, whatever is noble, whatever is worthy, whatever is excellent, think on these things.
Yep.
And he's saying in any situation, there's going to be a negative, there's going to be a positive. Whatever is lovely, whatever is noble, whatever is worthy. Not everything's fun.
Well, consider where he was.
And that's the beauty of it, is people don't understand where he was at when he wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them.
He was literally on his way to death.
Yes.
He was imprisoned, and not cushy prison.
No.
He was in the deep
sewer
of the deep where the sewer ran through, waiting for the consequences of his relationship with Christ. And he's telling all of us, whatever is going on in your brain,
It's so crazy.
think nobly, think positive. And yeah,
It
is amazing.
If I was in prison awaiting death and they allowed somebody to come in to help me write a letter,
Mm-hmm.
you know what my letter would say?
Help! This sucks.
Get me out! But he had one more opportunity, positive thinking.
Yep.
This sucks, but what would be noble?
Sure.
This sucks, but what would be worthwhile in this moment in time? What can I do with this opportunity in front of me to write a letter?
Mm.
And Mike is dancing again.
Dang.
For the podcast
Just
audience
so good.
who can't hear him.
I don't care. I want to dance.
It's like I gave him a stick of juicy fruit. Woo!
It's just so good.
Yeah.
And I almost went negative thinking how long I've missed this. But today is what matters.
And that is,
getting it now.
Fundamental number one, focus on what we control, what I think, what I do, what I feel right now.
Yeah.
Not yesterday. Fundamental number two, shoulds versus wants.
Mm-hmm.
Martha versus Mary.
Right.
Fundamental number three, worry versus planning versus dreaming. 2 Corinthians, whatever you want, turn your requests over to God, and a peace that surpasses all understanding shall come upon you. Yeah. And then the next scripture. Finally, my brethren, whatever is lovely, whatever is positive thinking. And this is where I say he's the original cognitive behavioral psychologist, because if you finish that scripture and don't quit after the first three words, he says, whatever is noble, whatever is lovely, think on these things, focus on the positive.
Yep.
Do what I have suggested or demonstrated. So you know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Think positively. Do what you know to do. And the God of peace shall be with you. How you think what you do lead to your experience.
Yep.
Think positively. Do what you know to do. And bam, that's going to be an excellent experience. No matter the circumstances.
Yep. Philippians. So good. Philippians 4. That whole section right there. This is the first time I've tied it all together. Imagine how many times I'm sitting here thinking back on the different times I've taught on Philippians and just literally taught on don't be anxious. Hey, by the way, don't be anxious.
Yeah.
Let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day.
Yeah.
And wrap
Forget
it up.
your problem.
Yeah.
Don't think about it.
Yeah. Good grief. Yeah, the overall theme of Philippians is joy. And again, to consider that he was speaking about having joy in your life.
Yeah.
Positive, overwhelming joy in your life, where he was coming from, for us to have that beautiful reminder and lesson for us to be blessed with. It's just, go review Philippians and just see if it doesn't bless you. I'm going to.
Well,
So
guys, thank you for taking your time with us today. And if you've hung on this far into the podcast or this far into the video, do take another 2 minutes to click the like button, hit subscribe to the channel, share this with other people. That's the best compliment you can give Mike and I. I do appreciate people coming up to me and giving me feedback personally. That's great. That's rewarding. But just take a second, hit the like button, take a second, email your friend this link.
Yep.
That's the best compliment you can give us.
Absolutely. And have a great day.
We have one more chapter to get through, Fundamental Fusion, where we'll just talk about how to pull all this stuff together and some different examples where we can see it happening in living color.
Yeah.
And that should be it for this series. So tune in next week for the final chapter of 12:2, How to Transform Your Mind. And if you haven't gotten the book yet, do go get it. And we'll see you next week. I'm Lance.
And I'm Mike.
And we're just these guys, you know.
Have an awesome week.